for the end, and Dodi will explain more of that. Thank you.
Good evening. Those we say it need to aim it, and then off the up. Me. The first thing are just to do some housekeeping issues, like the chairman said. Please keep your questions to the very end. However, we passed out some index cards. If you look to the center of the table, you'll see some index cards with some pens. Please direct your questions, who you want to answer the question and what your question is. So at the end, I'll gather those. Also, just be respectful, and if you have a cell phone, would you please turn it on silent or turn it off for the duration of the meeting? On the agenda this evening, we have the first is our 118th Dual Immersion School information that Mrs. Teresa Chase and I will be presenting. We also have some information that Karen Returns to War, our Director of Child Support, that will be giving some information. Some information from Alfred Redman in regards to our Indian education. I don't see him here yet, though he may still be at the machines. Just kidding, Alfred. Oh, there you are. I was trying to tease you. And then we'll be talking about the water billing. We'll have Jola Wallingool. And then we'll also to hire a fluent elder to work with a master teacher and a student teacher. Effectiveness of this immersion school will begin immediately. People believe that our culture and language should be at the heart of our children's education, not only in school but also in the home. In order to write this grant, we used some of the late Dr. Burnett White Plume's dissertation because he felt, along with many of us, that revitalization of our Arapaho language is key for our tribe. So therefore, that's why the grant was written and it was approved. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Mrs. Teresa Chase. She's the director of our Arapaho Language and Culture Commission.
Ina dos bisi ni te ina na hathaa na nitana. Nanana na kaseni be. Wa'u e na besihi bas nanetana. Nasoni ni te hithi hinana etit. Batana hinana etit. Tasini thachana hiwan hata na kehina hasini. Nuhu hatnis jet chabi atina hinana etit. Nawath has ganata hat nanes nite hewuna hinana e yeti fanakatina hanini o obehina ta hantata nathana ni batan hethi ni babatana wana hetayani ben. Hello, all my relatives and everybody else who's here tonight. My name is Singing Sage Teresa His Chase. I am Arapaho and I'm also part Grovant. What I shared with you is that Wayne Seaher and all of the elders are still helping me learn our sacred language. Our language is sacred. And I'm glad to be here among all of you. I'm glad that all of you came tonight. Our children are sacred and holy and we respect them. Left hand, I'm helping to preserve his dream of, I'm helping to carry on his dream of preserving our Arapaho language. Hinana Eti, this is the institute created by Dr. Burnett Whiteplume to provide funding for the development and perpetual operation of a K-2 immersion school. We went and met with St. Stephen's School Board in April and got their blessing to write for this funding, and we were awarded the monies in June. And so like Dr. White Eagle stated, we will use the first year to do some planning and visit successful immersion schools, hire master teachers. And the plan is to do what we've always known that needed to happen, and that's to carry on with what our little ones learn at immersion. At immersion, our little ones get started and they learn really well, and then they go into the regular elementary schools and they kind of sort of lose what they learned and worked hard on all year. Or for the past 2 years. And so what we're trying to do is capture that language and work with a small group. Half the day will be spent in total immersion, Arapaho only, and then the second half of the day will be working on their core subjects, Monday through Thursday, and then on Fridays is when the teachers that we hire, the novice teachers, they're going to be training and they're going to be taking classes through the University of Wyoming, the Wind River Tribal College, and Central Wyoming College so that they can attain the Wyoming State certification as a teacher. So this is a really great project, and I hope that we can make this possible in all of our local schools, because that's what Dr. Burnett based his dissertation around. Was he went and visited the community members in both areas, and he found out that what the majority of the people wanted was that we needed to educate our children through our language and culture, so that's what we're doing. And I did a language survey in April and May of this year, and 99% of the people want the same, and so it's known. It's known that that's what we want. You know, 99.27% of the people surveyed want this. And so it was determined by myself and Dr. Whiteplume through his dissertation that the majority of the people in our tribe want language and culture first. And we've always said this. The elders 20 years ago were saying this, 40 years ago. So we're finally making it come true through funding such as this. We continue to seek capital funding to make this school possible so that in 13 years we'll be our first graduates of fluent Arapaho speakers. The following year after that, there will be another bunch of students who are going to graduate with, they'll be competent in all the core subjects, but they'll be fluent in the language, and that's what makes us unique as Arapaho, is our sacred language. They will understand everything about our culture and how to conduct themselves, how to live Arapaho proper. Haho hathana bisihi nitaena hatina asa haho. Haho.
Craig, can you change the... I'd like to call up Miss Karen Returns Tour to speak on behalf of the Northern Arapaho Child Support.
Thus, Betsy Natina, Nasat Na Tilkasi, Nanisatena, Northern Arapaho Child Support Program. We're here tonight to kind of talk about what we do. Right now, we currently have over 1,500 open cases with various families. I have Ursula Aragon with me. She's our lead child support specialist, and Angie Crazy Thunder. They have been with the program for a long time, so they are a wealth of knowledge regarding how the program is run. We brought a brochure to talk about what the program does, if you want our services, the process, how cases work through the program. One of the things I want to do right now, because we are more than about money, we're about the children of our tribe. And so right now we have our elders that are right here. And in the middle with our elders are our children, even though we don't have no children right now. So I would like to ask the women, our mothers, to come and surround these tables here. If you would be willing to, all the mothers, the women, our adult women, make a circle around these. So what we're doing right now is how our children and our elders are the center of our families. And surrounding the center of our families are our mothers, our women. And so now I would like to ask the men, the young men, old men, come surround our women. Stand behind them. Anybody? Don't be afraid. Traditionally, this is how our family unit was. Our men were on the outside. They were our protectors. They provided for us. They watched over the mothers. The mothers protected the elders, the children. However, right now, I want to ask those of you that are caring for grandchildren, nieces, nephews, other people's children, to step outside with the men. This is what our family circle looks like now. And the point that I want to make is that our families need to go back to the way it is. The men in our tribe need to step out and continue. The mothers need to continue to take care of our elders and our children again.
That was pretty cool. Thank you, Karen. Haho, that was pretty awesome. Wow. Next, I'd like to call up Alfred Redman to speak and behalf of Indian education. Do you want to stand up here?
Oh, those everybody. I want to talk a little bit about Northern Arapaho education, and the mission statement for the association is to promote lifelong learning, ensure that quality education alleviates opportunities for members of our tribe from early childhood through life. The Northern Arapaho tribe maintains the education for all tribal members is a right and is an integral part of the trust responsibility of the federal government is affirmed by the United States Constitution, the United States Supreme Court decisions, federal statutes, and executive orders, and outlined in this Indian Self-Determination and Education Assistance Act. Okay, that's a statement that talk about the way of life. The way of life is important to all of us. Why do we need it? Our ancestors knew it. They needed it to survive. And this was handed down to them by their elders. They were taught to hunt. They used all parts of the buffalo. Everybody did their part. They didn't have classes. They learned as they went along by doing things taught by their leaders. The girls did their part and the boys did theirs. Today, we don't do the things that the elders did to survive. We have technology. And technology makes things a lot easier for us. There's TVs there, and microphone here, and just about everything that we do now comes from technology. We have, excuse me, we have Safeway and other stores. We have butcher plants to cut up our meats, but they don't say the parts that our elders did. Pups were used in ceremonies. When I was growing up, you used to see pups hanging along tents on both sides. The students need to learn and practice their culture, value systems, and traditional ways of our elders. I believe that if students learn more about their culture and value systems, they will succeed in a classroom and will want to improve on their attendance and the overall learning about way of life. Today we have a lot of dropouts from schools and colleges. They have a lot of different reasons. I've been keeping track of it since I started working as an education director, and I've got about 3 pages of excuses that they've been using. A lot of the kids don't want to talk about their dropouts or why they missed in school because they don't want to embarrass themselves, or maybe it's pride. And a lot of the kids don't have school, don't have new clothes to go to school, and therefore they don't want to go to school. And some of them that do go end up dropping out. We need to get our students in school on a regular basis. Excuse me. Parents, grandparents, anyone who has children that need to go to school. Head Start through college. Today we had a few with doctorate degrees. We need more college graduates to come back to the reservation to help us. Today we need more Indian teachers with college degrees to work in our school systems. And there's not very many students majoring in education. I didn't get the percentage, but it's way low anyway. In the past, we had AYP. Our students as a whole did not do very well, and they were all at the bottom of the totem pole. And today we have another system called Every Student Succeeds Act, ESSA. And this past year, the students from the reservation were low again. And the testing for this past year was supposed to, the result was supposed to be out by the 1st of August, but I didn't get them on the computer. The parents, grand and foster parents, and anyone excuse me, who takes care of school-aged children. The Northern Arapaho General Council voted the education to be the #1 priority of the Arapaho tribe. The schools are free for everyone living on the Wind River Reservation from birth through high school. But in college, you have to have scholarships, so you pay for your education. And in a sense, it's free because they get tribal people scholarship. All the schools are having attendance problems. The average daily attendance, dropout rates, and graduation rates are in bad shape. There are many reasons for children missing and not going to school. It starts at an early age, children being checked out, and it continues through the high school. And in college, they miss a lot of schooling. These past school years have a new method for teaching children from the federal government. This act, the goals under the ESSA for the schools, excuse me, they expect an 88% graduation rate. I think our graduation rate is around 60% on reservation. And for grades 3 through 8, they want 65% proficient or better, and they're this way down. High school math, 46% proficient or better. High school reading, 39% of students proficient or better. Growth for students learning English. All Wildman schools will have 15 years to reach their long-term goals. If they don't meet these goals, they will be put on probation or something, and the federal government might come in and take over the schools. They don't know yet. Under the WAEA, schools are not rated as partially be part of the meeting or not meeting expectations should submit a school improvement plan, which are just areas that need improvement. Under ESSA, schools with graduation rate below 67% and the bottom 5% of Title I schools will be identified for state-led support. Excuse me. Additionally, schools with specific groups in the bottom 10% will be identified for support and intervention led by the school and district. The information will be included in the report card. How will Wildman get information about student performances? ESSA requires annual testing and reporting reading and math and grades 3 through 8, and once grades 10 through 12, as well as in science. Once a grade, once in grade spans 3 to 5, 6 to 9, 10 to 12. Women students in grades through 10. I'll take a woman, excuse me, I'm not devil time. The students in grade 11 will continue to take the act. This is just a few of the guidelines of the Student Succeeds Act. Under ESSA, the state of Wyoming has more of a way. Yeah. Thank you.
Sit it right there.
We have in the Northern Arapaho Tribal Education Office a toolkit that partnerships with the National Center for Learning Disabilities. NCLD can help you become ESSA advocate. Now is the time to let your state, Wyoming, and district education officials in Fremont County District know what you want your child to be counted. You can come in the office and we'll have the form for you to fill out. Do you think you're having problems with the school? Just come on in and if you don't want to come on in and let us know through phone, we'll get them to you. Remember this educational program, ESSA, Italian children who did not have any opportunities before now have the preparation to train for anything they want. The Northern Arapaho Tribal Board started a campaign to stay in school. A pencil with education opens many doors for you. These are on the pencils, so I've got to bring some pencils down. And in Arapaho, there's the same thing, and the Shoshone language has the same thing. Each student will get one at the beginning of the school year. We want to see big increase in attendance this fall in all the schools. Remember, education opens many doors for you, and nobody can take your education away from you. The purpose of ESSA Indian education provisions is to meet the unique educational and culturally related academic needs of Indian students, so that students can meet the target challenge state academic standards to ensure that Indian students gain knowledge of native communities, languages, tribal histories, traditions, and culture, and to ensure that teachers, principals, and other school staff who serve Indian students have the ability to provide culturally appropriate and effective instructions to support such students. ESSA authorizes the Bureau of Indian Education, BIE, to exercise greater autonomy over schools. Excuse me again. The state standards are changing, says, speak up for your child. And you know the agents come here from their country, and the agents have the highest grades in all the subject matters. And when I heard that the people that they send their most influential kids over here, and the kids that don't pass tests stay and have to work in the fields. So that's not a true meaning of their testing. So imagine this body, even if they get everybody involved in testing. Your child, American Indian, deserves every opportunity to realize their full potential, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. They are the others of the future, holders of knowledge and wisdom that will be passed down to succeeding generations. American Indian children need the support that quality education can provide, but they are plagued by opportunity and achievement grabs. Remember this, the educational program, ESSA, is hired children who did not have any opportunities before. We now have the preparations to train for anything they want. The Northern Arapaho Tribal Board of Education started a campaign to stay in school. So we got some posters made out, but the paper didn't print it. They just put them in the Dear Editor column. The purpose of USSA Indian Education Provision is to meet the unique educational and culture-related academic needs of its students. So that students can meet and challenge state academic standards through languages, tribal histories, traditions, and culture, and to ensure that teachers, principals, and other school staff who serve Indian students have the ability to provide culturally appropriate and effective instruction and support such students. ESSA authorizes the Bureau of Indian, got that one for you. And NIAA has been in operation for the last probably 50 years, and the grades have not improved since. And Wyoming started their program. It's going to be next week. And they asked if they want to get anybody to come in and tell about the ESSA program. And they didn't get anybody. And so we've been there 10 years, and the grades haven't gone up. And so the NIA is the same thing. They've been here for a number of years, and the grades haven't gone up. They're still down at the bottom. Okay, this is all I have. I want to attend this thing that was in the papers, but they didn't put it in. They put it under Dear Editors. Attendance, don't be an outcast, stay in school. A good leader, don't do drugs or get into any kind of mischief. Don't be a follower, be a good leader. Don't listen to others, always be yourself. Study, be smart, not a smart ass. By being a leader, you can accomplish a lot of good things in life. Stay in school, you can be a leader and you can produce. Well, we'll keep it, man.
Oh, Alfred. I'd like to call Jola up.
Dos nanana bete nani bese. My name is Jola Wallingwell. I am the director for the Northern Arapaho Tribal Engineering Department, and I oversee the Northern Arapaho Billing Department also. And we are starting billing. We haven't billed the tribe since 2014. We never had any any policy and procedures in place, so those have been in place. We are starting to bill. For our Ethity water system, we have water meters installed. Arapaho, we don't have water meters yet. So we have to figure out a way to try to bill fairly. But residential, everybody's a flat rate. It's going to be a flat rate for residential customers. And right now we currently have a water rate study going on. And I can tell you that they basically told us we have the cheapest water. Our rates aren't very high. We haven't billed in a long time, so it is a kind of a culture shock to everybody to start paying for water again. But we have to do this because the funding we get federally and state funding, it's to improve our water systems. We have to start billing. We have to be sustainable to some point. So that's why we have to start billing again. The funding agencies that we work with, USDA and Rural Development, that's one of the stipulations is we have to start billing or they're not going to provide any more grants to the tribe. So the most important information I have right now is if you do not have an application with us, the week of August 19th, we're shutting off water. So, you know, that'll get people to our office, but we need an application, we need new updated information, because since the last time we billed, some of you might have became senior citizens since then. so you know, information has changed, people's homes change. We had our list was like, there was a lot of deceased, so we just need updated information to get our billing going again. And it's only to improve both of our water and wastewater systems, because we're not in good shape at all. So that's why we're starting this. If you have questions, you can ask myself. I also have Sheila McCabe. She's she's the field technician for water billing. She reads the meters, and she has experience in it. So I guess that's the only information I have. So it's important that you get an application to our office. We're going to leave some at the tribal office. We have some on the tables. If you do not have an updated application with us, the week of August 19th, Harold Little Bear and Mike Quiver are ready to shut off water. And they're going to, so. But, ha-ho.
Ha-ho, Jola. For those of you who have came in late, just a reminder to please put your phones on silent or to please turn them off. I would, next on the agenda, I would like to introduce the new Wind River Hotel and Casino CEO, Mr. Brian Von Eckenbrut. Or Vort, I don't know. Von Eckenvort. And also Mr. David Ron McElroy, Deputy CEO.
Well, welcome. I know I'm excited to finally get to talk to the general. I know that many of you might recognize me from the past. I was at Shoshone Rose for about 6 years. I spent a number of years in the gaming industry. I came through the finance side and spent time as general manager both at Shoshone Rose and also at Mohican North Star Casino in Wisconsin. And so it's great to be back here. I don't know if this is a second home or my first one. Some of the things about the casino, in following the council direction, some of the things for the future is the casino will be moving from a job provider to a revenue producer. And so there'll be many changes that are going to be coming about from the casino side. The primary goal of the casino going forward will be to produce more revenue for the tribe. On the tribal side, they will determine job levels and those types of things on their end. And so our primary goal going forward is to produce more and more revenue for the tribe. Now, one of the things that when we first came here, one of the things that we were hit with was it seemed that the cash in our bank accounts was depleted, and we also were stuck with 1.1 million in accounts payables. And this come just prior to, right towards the end of June. And so we went through Sundance And I think that Ron did a tremendous job making things happen on the finance side for the casino and getting us through that tight spot. Some of the things at the casino that haven't happened in the past is the structure does not match the casino standard or the industry standard for a casino. There was never a director's level developed here. And a lot of times that can be the training ground or the moving ground for your future CFOs or CEOs. And so it also, in the chain, I'm answering to about 25, 28 managers. And the normal practice is about 5 directors. And then it funnels down from there it's an internal control thing. Also, some of the things that we've run across is we have more than just structural problems. The internal controls are very, very weak. Also, there's limited checks and balances in the system, and so we're proposing new policy and procedure to justify in the future that we are going to take care of your assets, and you're going to be made aware with a little bit more transparency where your money is actually going. And so I'd like to introduce Ron now. I think you all know him. He's a great guy, and he did a wonderful, wonderful job handling the finances when we first transitioned in July.
Thanks for bragging me up, Brian. I think everybody pretty much knows me. I used to work at the casino as the CFO for over 8 years, quite a while ago now. I went to the business council, and then my latest thing was to be the CFO of the Tribe 638 of the Arapaho Clinic, and that's been very successful. And when the opportunity came up, I decided to apply for the CEO position here. And I appreciate Brian and his knowledge, a lot of this stuff. I might understand finance stuff really well, but when it gets into some of these different things, like restaurants and stuff, I don't have too much of a background in that kind of a thing. So I'm learning a lot from him already. And just as the same thing as what he said, you know, our very first week in, the next week was payroll. And I had access to the accounts online. I just didn't have the ability to transfer funds between accounts. But the funds weren't there to cover our payroll even. And I almost thought we weren't even going to be able to cover payroll. And then, you know, July 15th that week there was when Sundance and everything was happening, and there was a lot of activities from here because we're oversee the Little Win Loan Program, and I got nervous about some of that kind of stuff, and I worked with the Tribe's consultants in finance and with Tessa, and we were able to cover our payroll. And what it was is bought a lot of assets right at the end of June. So a lot of machine purchases, a machine upgrade for the whole system that connects all of our casinos together with all the machines. And just the overall amount that was actually paid out was $1.180 million worth of new stuff. And another basically $400,000 for the machine upgrade, but luckily that vendor didn't take the check or didn't get paid because they hadn't invoiced us yet. And it turns out that a few of these would have given us 0% interest over a 12-month period where it wouldn't cost us to make 12 installment payments. But it just drained the accounts down to where it made it very difficult just right off the get-go. I don't know if that was planned or what. But we're moving forward, and stuff's slowly getting better, and we're going to be making a lot of changes like he talked about structurally to try to improve it. Right now, when we got all these different managers asking us all these different questions and stuff, our days are pretty full. I think I've worked probably closer to 60 hours a week. I've had to bug Tessa forever and ever, but I think I got the bank straightened out where we're added, so we can do. She's like, but anyway, I'll let these guys introduce the attorneys too and what they're working on with what they found. And hopefully in the future, we'll have great things.
Ho, ho, Ron. Before I introduce the attorneys, I'd like to introduce Glenn from the Whipley accounting firm and some of the findings that he's found while being here for a couple of weeks.
Thank you. My name is Glenn Galt. I'm with Whiffley Joseph Eve accounting firm. I've been with them for nearly 20 years now. Joseph Eve merged with the Whiffley accounting firm in October of 2017, and we're being co-branded as Whiffley Joseph Eve until October of 2019. Joseph Eve, I don't know if you're familiar or not, but they've been involved in tribal gaming and tribal audits for almost 40 years now. And I've been with them ever since I started in 2000. So up here, just my cursor review, because I've only been here for a couple weeks. Some of the things that kind of jump out to me here is the overall profitability of the casino. All right. In 2017, the bottom line that net revenue as a percentage of total revenue was only 7.8%. Okay, typically casinos want to see 20 to 30% of net revenue coming down to the bottom line. This is income before being transferred to the tribe. Okay? In 2018, those numbers came up a little bit. They're about 10%, but still they're far below what normal casino would have for just normal operations, right? I did definitely notice that there's a lack of internal controls, specifically around purchases. I went through credit card statements, and so far for the first 6 months of 2019, they've spent over $535,000 on credit cards. Okay, credit card purchasing, typically in a casino, when you buy things through the purchase order process, and you buy them through a purchase order. Well, when you have credit cards and you just charge things at the credit card, you're totally bypassing the internal controls set up in the purchase order process, to where you don't get proper approval on what you're purchasing, and you really have no controls over the amount of money that you're spending, right? That's a serious internal control weakness, especially when you start looking at purchases that are made at Walmart or PayPal or whatever places. Lots of eating restaurants, eating establishments in both Lander and Riverton, across the nation as well. Buying airline tickets. Normally you would go through a purchase process to buy this stuff. But you have over 17 different credit cards issued out to people, employees, and there doesn't seem to be any controls over those credit card purchases. Okay, I haven't had a chance to look at the actual invoices to see whether or not the charge that you make at Walmart is really for a business purchase or something that was bought personal. So haven't had a chance to get into that. Okay. But that's one of the biggest areas that I see as weaknesses here. I've been with Joseph Eve it'll be 20 years next year, so 19 years. And I'm a senior manager there. And I specialize with tribal gaming facilities. I've probably been to 125 different tribal gaming facilities over my career. But you have a really nice facility here. You know, you do have some problems with revenue-wise, you know, and it's a rural area. And you have a nice facility, and you should be getting a lot more money out of it before, you know, it gets to the bottom line. So the controls over spending are just non-existent. And that's the biggest problem that I see right now. Okay?
Thank you. There again, if you have any questions, there's note cards in the middle of the tables. Up next, I'd like to introduce Mr. Keith Harper. Craig, do you want to come up too, or just Keith? Okay, and Mr. Craig Williams, and they're the attorneys with the KTS law firm, and I'll let them brag about themselves.
Thanks, Dodie. Good evening, everybody. I'm Keith Harper. I'm a citizen of the Cherokee Nation. My colleague is Craig Williams over here in Mississippi Choctaw. And we've been honored to work with the tribe for the last few months, and it's in an effort to address some of the issues that have been going on, with the casino, and also now with some other contractors and lawyers that had been working with the tribe. And so we're going to go through a presentation, but before we do that, I want to tell you a little bit about us, what our law firm's all about. First of all, I've been here before many years ago because I represented Eloise Cobell. You may have heard about the Cobell lawsuit, and it was a class action lawsuit. I think many folks in this room were probably members of the class of 500,000 individual Indians. And so we would come out for informational meetings here to Wind River back when this lawsuit was going on in the early 2000s. And so we settled that case, of course, in 2009 for $3.4 billion, and those monies have been distributed. Our firm, we have about 700 lawyers, but we have about 13 that basically do work exclusively for Indian tribes, and most of the folks in the group are Native themselves. And one thing I want to make very, very clear is one of our governing philosophies, and that is that when you represent a tribe, it is vitally important that the people that make the decisions for the tribe is the tribe itself through its elected leadership. That is absolutely essential, because that's what tribal sovereignty means. Tribal sovereignty does not mean lawyers go in and make decisions for the tribes. What tribal sovereignty means is that lawyers provide the information and the means to which you achieve the goals as defined by and prioritized by the tribe and the tribal community and the business council in this case, working with the general council as well. That's what the job of a lawyer is, not to import their own views. Lawyer is much more like a tool to achieve objectives. And so that's one of our critical governing philosophies, because too often I saw in the legal profession attorneys who put themselves too much at the center of the decision making and usurping the sovereignty of the tribe. And that's just not the way we do things. That's not what self-determination is. That's not what sovereignty means. What sovereignty means is that you work through the elected officials to make those decisions. And so that's one of our core philosophies in our representation of any tribe. And we represent tribes all across this country, from Agua Caliente to Suquamish to Mohegan and Mashantucket, and tribes in virtually every region of the country. So now we're going to go through a few slides. And tell you a little bit about the for lack of better terms, investigation or assessment of what's been going on here with your various folks that have worked for the tribe. And look, I am going to be very, very blunt, very candid. I have not seen any situation like this in my 25 years of practicing law. First of all, let me talk about the law firm of Baldwin, Crocker, and Rudd. As you may know, the Business Council authorized and we filed a lawsuit against Baldwin, Crocker, and Rudd. The reason we filed the lawsuit is that the firm refused to comply with certain basic rules regarding how a lawyer is supposed to treat their client. Let me go through some of these. So when a lawyer is in an attorney-client relationship, they owe certain duties to their client. They have to keep their information confidential, for example. If you have money that you're holding of a client, you have to keep that as a trust fund. It means you have fiduciary duties to take care of that money, and you have to pay back that money when the case is over, your relationship has been terminated. You also have to provide what is called an accounting. This is what the whole Cobell case was about, was a trustee not providing an accounting to individual beneficiaries. And what an accounting is it's a detailed analysis of everything that's been deducted from that account. It's your money. They're holding your money. They're holding the tribe's money. And if they're holding the tribe's money, then they have to tell you what they did with that money. If they have an expenditure, well, why did you have that expenditure? How did it benefit your client? If you say you worked this hour, okay, well, what did you do for that hour? What product did you create? What meeting did you go to? So you need detailed records. And they absolutely, steadfastly refused to return the documents of the tribe. They refused to provide the tribe's own money back to it. And they provided some money, but not all the money. They only produced a handful of documents. Now, when a relationship between an attorney and a client ends, one of the fundamental rules, it's in every ethics rule in any state, federal courts, you have to return the documents to your client. And the reason that is because those documents are what the client can use to protect its own interests. And so if you don't give the documents back, this tribe is left without being able to protect itself because your former lawyers will not return their documents. They make all kinds of excuses. None of them are any reason or any basis, any sound basis to not return your own documents. So not returning your documents, not returning your funds, not providing the accounting. Those are the things that they have utterly failed to do. And because of that, the tribe rightfully brought a claim, and we'll just have to litigate it out, and we'll file for injunctions in short order in order to get those documents so we can protect your interests. And, you know, I will say, Baldwin, Crocker, and Rudd was paid a lot of money by this tribe. And I don't know if anybody has seen a traditional billing statement from an attorney, but what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to list the attorney that worked on a matter, how many hours they worked on that matter, what their fee was, what in specific description of whatever they worked on. For each and every hour. In our firm, we break it down by every 6-minute increment. So if you work 30 minutes on a matter, you put 0.5. And then you have a long description about what you did for that 0.5. And that's how every law firm that I've ever known about does their billing records. And so if you have, if in this case, for example, some of Baldwin, Crocker, and Rudd's billing was over $100,000 in a month, and that can be legitimate. I'm not saying it's not. But let me tell you, there's no billing records. They didn't produce any billing records. When this counsel asked them for billing records, they said, no, those are confidential. How can the tribe's own records be confidential from the tribe? Think about that. Think about the absurdity of that. Think about just how contrary to law that is. But this is what Baldwin, Crocker, and Rudd said. Not only did they get paid by the tribe, but Jim Conrad also paid them. In fact, in June, the records show that he may have paid something like $130,000 just in June to Baldwin, Crocker, and Rudd. In addition to all that, they've got 2 cases that they're taking on contingency fee. And in one of those cases, we understand they're sharing a fee of 40%. So whatever the tribe gets, they get to get 40% of that, on top of all the fees that they've been charging. This is what we found out so far, and this is why the tribe, the business council instructed us to prepare. You don't do things like this lightly. You know, they did not do this lightly. We repeatedly, Chairman Spoonhunter repeatedly requested your documents. Doty delivered a letter, hand-delivered a letter to the firm asking for your documents. Still, steadfast refusal to return your documents, leaving the tribe vulnerable on all its legal issues. That is unethical. That is unethical. So prior to Mr. Conrad, as you know, the business council had decided not to renew or not to have a new contract with Mr. Conrad. And so it was expiring as of June 30th of this year. And so the council did not want to break the contract, but on the other hand, they were concerned that he would try to spend their money or give away their money or take other actions. And so with foresight, the council passed a resolution on June 6th, Resolution 1143. And among other things, this resolution did three things. First, it said that no employee, including Mr. Conrad, could spend more than $10,000. Because, you know, you have day-to-day expenses, and they didn't want to stop that, but they wanted to make sure that he wasn't spending a lot of money. Secondly, they said no new contracts without the consent of the business council, which is also sensible if you want to control the use of resources. And no waiving of sovereign immunity without council approval. Well, what did Mr. Conrad do? Mr. Conrad went and spent lots of money on things. And he spent lots of money specifically on his friends. He spent, we think it maybe not 175. We have new information that might be a little less. But he paid Mark Howell $110,000 just in June. $110,000. They paid BCR somewhere, and we think more likely over $100,000. And then he paid Joel Vincent $85,000, another lawyer in these parts. And what was Joel Vincent to do? Joel Vincent was paid that money because they were concerned that Faith Wallowing Bull would get fired, and another colleague would get fired when the new CEO came in. And she did get fired because she was aiding and abetting Jim Conrad in his wrongdoing. And I'm sorry to say that. You know, I'm a Native person. I have don't like to speak ill, but that's just the facts. And so with the Joel Vincent payment, in an email to me, Mr. Vincent says that he made that payment, or that payment was made to him in order to pay for these legal fees for future litigation against whom? Against the so you're using tribal monies in litigation against the tribe. Prepayment. Think about that. I mean, Mr. Conrad uses casino funds like his own personal piggy bank, paying off his friends. And Ron spoke about it earlier, and I want to say, you know, I really appreciated working with both Brian and Ron. Their professionalism has been just extraordinary, and they're trying everything they can to right the ship, and I'm confident that it will be righted in their hands. So, a couple of specifics. because Ron touched about this earlier, but I want to just talk about it a little bit further. When he was walking out the door, despite the council paying what it paid, Mr. Conrad spent $1.2 million of what the tribe's cash on hand in the casino. $1.2 million. Why did he do that? Well, he's always said many times that if he wasn't around, the casino would fall apart. So what he's trying to do here, it seems a natural explanation, is that he's trying to spend out all the money so that there's not enough cash to make payroll. And I think, in one instance, as they touched upon earlier, $400,000, they could have paid over, $396,000, they could have paid over a 12-month period in installments with no interest, and he paid it all up front to zero out the accounts. In another instance, he tried to pay $400,000, but because they hadn't even been invoiced yet, that payment was rejected by the company. Otherwise, he would have spent that, and their job of trying to make payroll would have been that much more difficult. This is sabotage, is what this is. And the thing is like, he did it at the most pernicious time, right? I mean, not only did you have your casino, but this was right before the Arapaho Sundance, so that there wouldn't be funds. He wanted to cause pain. I've literally never seen anything like this in my career. It's that extraordinary. So as I touched upon earlier, Mr. Vincent wasn't just paid for casino work, even though the tribe said you can't pay over $10,000, but he was paid in order to be against the tribe itself and the casino. And earlier, we talked to our accountant, who were very happy, your accountant, doing a lot of assessment of what's going on, trying to find the records so we can uncover precisely all the malfeasance. And they're doing a good job. But these are just all the bills. You can just take a look as we go through these, all the bills that were money just flowing out of the casino, just flowing out. This is not even all of it. I mean, there's sponsorships of this, that, and everything that have nothing to do with the casino, from far away places in some instances. And so we're midway through what the task we're being asked to do, which is assess what's going on. Make sure that the tribe's interests and rights are protected, because we need to get those documents in order to do that. We need to make sure that your funds are accounted for. We need to make sure that your money is back in your hands. And so, again, let me just say, we're happy, obviously, to take any questions. But, look, I've been practicing Indian law for many years, representing many tribes. But, the reason I went to law school is to fix these kinds of wrongs. So, thank you. I spoke too soon, sorry. Let me just add one more thing. I thought he was done. Mark Howe, you may have seen in the papers. Let me tell you something about the newspapers in this area, by the way. These newspapers are all about trying to take down the tribe. I've never seen anything like it. I have never seen anything like this. There's a lawsuit that we filed against BCR and laid out all this wrongdoing. And the story in the Casper paper is that the tribe is divided because two members voted against or did not support the resolution. So the headline was, lawsuit demonstrates, something to the effect of, lawsuit demonstrates how tribe is divided. I mean, it had nothing to do with the division. If Congress passes a bill by 2/3 of Congress voting one way, the headline's not going to be, oh, Congress is divided. No, it's going to be that you pass this bill, whatever it is, and the substance of the bill. So it's one of these absurdities. But Mr. Howell, and so, you know, don't trust anything, in my judgment, don't trust anything you read in either this Riverton whatever in the Casper paper, because they are all they're trying to do is take any information and try to make the tribe look bad. You know, it's an awful thing. But they did a story regarding the Wyoming Public Policy Center, which is an entity created to oppose some gaming bills here in Wyoming, but they did it without authorization of the Business Council. Now they're saying, oh, well, no, we had authorization. Mark Howell is saying we had authorization. But interestingly, even though they have all these emails in June that they told the council things, they don't have a single email, they don't have a single documentation of the council when they started this back last year. That tells you something. They don't have any documentation whatsoever, and this council acts by resolution. But they've just spent a ton of money on this, and on Mark Howell generally. Go to the next slide. Go to the next. Let's go. Okay, so the Wyoming Public Policy Center and related entities in June, again, Mark Howell was paid $110,000. Is that right? Yeah. At least $100,000 was paid over this last 6 months or so to 21st Strategies, and at least $78,000 to Wyoming Public Policy Center. This is in addition to the fact that the tribe already pays Mark Howell. So unbeknownst to the Business Council, unbeknownst to the people, they were making all of these payments from the casino. And first of all, you should know that under the law, under federal law, casino expenditures are supposed to be for operations, for operations of the casino. Anything that's not for operations should go to the tribe, and then the tribe figures out how to, because what this money is supposed to be for services to the people, whatever is prioritized from the people. So again, these are the folks that we are doing this assessment. It's ongoing. We're midway through. We're finding new things every day. But rest assured, we are going to do all we can to protect the interests of this community. Thank you.
Okay. Have Craig do the expenditures. Yeah.
Just give him the mic. Yeah. Okay, Craig, the mic.
And these are some of the expenditures that the casino paid beginning in January 2019. This isn't a full list of them. This is just some of the ones that we found with our initial search.
lot of information to digest. While you're sitting there, Brendan will be going around collecting the questions you may have. However, I'm going to turn it over to Chairman Spoon Hunter.
Okay, let's just want to go over a few things with you guys. Well, more comments. I want you to raise your hands when I ask you these questions. How many of you have lost sleep at night wondering how you're going to pay your rent? Raise your hand. How many of you have wondered how you're going to pay your lights or get your lights back on? How many of you have wondered, how am I going to feed my kids? How am I going to feed, what am I going to eat tomorrow? What's going to be for dinner? How many have wondered how we're going to help our disabled and how we're going to help our elders? How we're going to build ramps, get them the showers that they need so they can take a shower in their house, the disabled and the seniors. Our seniors who cannot work anymore, who live on fixed incomes. How many of you patchwork your roofs and put tarp over it, hoping that it doesn't leak or fall through? How many of you live without a real refrigerator or a stove in your house? How many of you have wondered, I'm so proud of my kid who's going down to the University of Wyoming, but his education costs $20,000, and it says on his financial needs analysis that I got to pay $6,000 myself for education for children. I raise those kind of issues because you see what kind of money is going out the back door here. We as a council are fighting for all of you who raised your hand and those who are watching over the internet tonight. I go through a lot of attacks. You all read about me in the paper. My personal life, personal friendships, things that, I've said before, I'm not perfect. And I'm working on becoming a better person. You've heard me talk about it before, time and time again, that I'm working on myself. But those are just distractions so that these people that you've seen up here can get paid more money, can go back to the way it was, go back to what it was before. I heard before, the council's heard before, why fix something that's working? We've heard that before. You're young. Don't you know the history of how we got here, the people who got us here? Why don't you listen to what the older seniority people have to say? Those are the kind of comments that come to us all the time. Those of you who know me know that I was raised traditional, and I have the utmost respect for our senior people, for those older than me. I'm not here because of myself. And I get emotional because we are all Arapaho, all of us. And what you see, I promise you, as a council, we are going to fight this and change this. And we are going to make sure that that money that went out the back door comes to all of you. There's a lot of services, there's a lot of programs that we need for our Arapaho people. And that's what we're about, is making sure that we provide for all of you. We provide for you. This is yours. Isn't it beautiful? This is yours. This is beautiful. And like they said, with our new CEOs, we are going to move into making revenue, and revenue for all of you. It's time for us as a tribe, and you've heard me say this in the last public meeting, to take back what is ours. We are Arapahos. We are educated. We have the experience to do this ourselves. We do not need non-Indians and pay them hundreds and thousands of dollars to think for us. We together, all of us, each Arapaho, together, me, you, everyone that's listening by the internet, together as one tribe, as one people, we will move into a better future. But we ask you to support us in what we have to do. And we promise you, each day, we will fight for you. We will fight for you. We will be your voice. We will make sure that the decision that we make is for the betterment of the tribe and all these little ones that are running around, that we leave them a better life than we have today. I just want to thank you. I could go on all night, but I just want to thank you and say to all of you, ho-ho.
Good evening, everyone. First and foremost, I want to thank you all for being here, taking the time to be with us. What do you guys think about actually being here for a meeting versus our community hall? Yeah. Again, you know, that's why we do what we do, and that's why the decisions that we are making is on you guys' behalf. Again, it'd be nice if our community halls were this nice, and that we'd actually have senior centers that are this nice. You know, we are actually doing the best job that we can with again the consensus of us to move things forward in a good direction. Again, that's always hard because not everyone agrees what that direction should be. And again, that's the challenge that we have, and that's the stuff that we signed up for. And again, we accept that challenge, you know, full-heartedly, because again, we stand by our decisions that we make because we look at all of you before we make those decisions. We look for your input to have a better understanding of what those decisions should be. You know, we come and talk to you guys wherever we can find you and visit with you and tell you some of the things that are going on and some of the directions that we're seeking, you know, as an advice. Those are what we do every day, you know, to try and understand how best to move forward on behalf of all of you. Now, again, we've been very fortunate to have some very good people come on board to help us with that also, to give us perspectives that are outside the box and out of the norm, because again, that's been the biggest issue, is the influence that we've had as a tribe has always been very, very small, you know, and that's one thing that we recognized as we began to go down this journey to look at possible change. When we started to look at change, we started to notice a lot of things started to move, and a lot of red flags started to come up that as any of you would probably see it the same way, that these things are not right. These things shouldn't be happening. And that's the things that we seen as a council as we started our process just to evaluate. And as we went through that process, we started to notice that some of the people that we trusted weren't being very truthful with us. And that was a big, big concern because we trusted them with everything to try and help us to help you. And again, looking out for the best interests of the tribe, that really hurt, you know, to see that reality that we actually have a lot of people that we trusted not be trustworthy and show us things that we would never want to see, which is deception, you know, and that was a hard dose of reality to accept, because again, we're talking a lot of big issues that the tribe is facing, and these individuals have been part of influencing what direction that would go for the tribe. And again, they were very questionable to us. And so we seeked out the advice that we needed to have a different perspective, to have a difference of opinion, to actually try and understand what it was that we were looking at, and if it really was true. And again, those results came back just as we thought they were, not good. And so we had to start looking at how to make these changes. But first and foremost, we always got to have a consensus to do so. And so it was critical that 4 of us were in agreement to actually look at change and find out what it would take to implement change. And again, that's the hardest thing, is change, because there's a lot of people who may not see that the same way and feel that, as Chairman mentioned, that, hey, we're okay, everything's good. When in reality, I don't know how any of us could ever say that. Because again, every day, like I said, we talk to you all, and we hear, the struggles and the pains and the things that all of our members are going through at different times. There's always a crisis for some of our families, and there's always hardships that we are facing, and there's always a lot of things that are going on with all of our families on a reservation. And so for me to hear someone say it's okay, status quo, we're okay, leave it alone, that didn't sit well with me, because I knew that wasn't reality. Reality is a lot of our people struggle. A lot of us are trying our best to do. A lot of us are being resilient with what little means we do have. But yet, I couldn't contrast and see it from that view of saying everything's okay, because I knew that's not true. And again, it's our duty as elected officials to look ahead and try to prepare and plan for our future, for our youth, and even for some of our younger tribal members who will be entering into the realm of many of our elders here. And that's always a big concern for us, is our children and our elders, because again, fixed incomes, lack of support, lack of parentship. A lot of our grandparents are raising a lot of our young ones, and a lot of that's not by choice, because of the social ills that we face, because of a lot of things that we, the tribe, cannot afford to be resourceful to be able to help encourage and support our membership in a good way that actually produces better results. And that's always been the excuse for the tribe, is, well, we just don't, we have a lot of good minds that have a lot of good ideas, but if we don't have the resources to back up those ideas, then it's just hopes and dreams, and again, that's why we're making these changes. That's why we're looking at things from a different perspective, because the status quo is not going to get us there. We have to look outside the box. We got to think outside the box and start looking at everybody and seeing how we can get behind you all and support you in those endeavors to actually go back to whatever it is that you feel you need to succeed in life, and providing these programs that actually are going to be a benefit to each and every one of us for the family structures that we come from. Hitting on Teresa Hischase and Alfred Redman, their presentation about education and our cultural relevance, those things need to be inserted back into our circles. And those things need to be a bigger part of our community, so that we do enrich ourselves, we do support ourselves, and we do give ourselves hope. And that's what this is about. This presentation on this casino update is about hope, because there's a lot of things that we found and are seeing that are wrong. And that's on all levels. I commend Brian and Ron. They got a very hard job right now. There's a lot of things that they are finding, and a lot of things that they are needing to work through and address. And basically, those guys need to look like, what do you call it, those octopuses, right? They got the 8 tentacles on them, that's what they need right now, is as much information that they're trying to sort through and figure out and try to stay on top of. But again, I trust in both of them. Again, I spent a lot of time to try and visit with them, to get an understanding and a feel for who they were as people, to get a better understanding if they are the right ones for all of us. And so I would like to encourage everyone here that actually knows them and wants to get to know them, please do. Please take some time to visit with them and ask them the questions that you feel are very important, so that you can better have a understanding and trust for who these individuals are. And of course, the attorneys that have come on to help us with some of these issues and work towards, again, how do we turn this around, and how do we start producing positive, how do we make these things work the way they're supposed to for our people? And again, we don't want to be working to try and figure how do we do best to give handouts. It's how do we do best to give hand-ups? Let's figure how we need to structure ourselves so that everyone has the same benefits. How do we be fair and ensure that all of you can have the security and trust in any system that is developed here on the reservation on behalf of the Arapaho tribe? Again, we're looking at strategies on how do we best set these things up so that these things never occur again. How do we ensure the structures to safeguard for all of you and for the future generations, and hopefully our future tribal CEOs as we move forward? These are the things that we got to look at. And how do we set ourselves up on a tribe side if Brian and Ron's goal is to start really making this casino business benefit the tribe and start really moving revenue to the tribe? How do we ensure you guys that we're going to do the right thing when those revenues start to come? To ensure accountability, to ensure that these dollars are going to address the needs of all of us in a fair manner, And so those are the things that we're thinking about and looking at and trying to best understand, so that we can have something that we can present to all of you with confidence, knowing that this is what we're coming up with as far as trying to move these things forward on behalf of all of you. And again, once we get to a certain point, we'll introduce that to you all so that you guys can give us more input and tell us what you think of that. Tell us if we're missing something. Tell us if there's something that should be added, or maybe you guys don't like this idea or that idea. We want to be transparent as possible, and we've asked Brian and his crew to do the same. Be transparent with us. Make sure you communicate with us. And Brian is all about that. He wants to be able to set up monthly meetings so he can express how the monthly spending is going for the casino, so that we actually have the right information that we can express to all of you to ensure that we're on the right track or not. And so those are some of the things that are coming for all of you. And, again, I just appreciate your time, and I'll call it good there. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, hello, everyone. I was trying to wait until after Dodie got done with her questions. What I want to talk about tonight is our tribal sovereignty. A lot of people don't know a lot about sovereignty. Sovereignty, any tribal sovereignty, is with a tribe. It's the tribe as a whole. Tribal sovereignty doesn't just belong to one person, 2 persons, 3 persons. It's all of us. It's the whole tribe. That is our sovereignty. And we need to get up and exercise that sovereignty on Saturday at the General Council meeting. We need to show them that they cannot run over us. We need to show them that we know how to think for ourselves, that Northern Arapahos know how to read and write and comprehend what we're reading. Before, it seemed like we were just told what to do, and we went along with that. But not anymore. We need to show these Niathos around us that we're going to be a force from here on out. Not only here in our community, but throughout the state. Throughout the state. So one thing that we need to start talking about is who are we going to start electing the next time elections come around? We need to start thinking about who we want for a senator, a governor, a county commissioner. Who do we want for our business council? Those types of things. So those are the things that we really start needing to be getting involved in, all of us. All of us 18 years old and older, and even with our young kids, we need to start with them on how much influence as a tribe that we have in this state. So we need to start making that known now that we know that we're going to have the money to do these types of things that we should have been doing a long time ago. So I would ask you to be at the General Council meeting to show our sovereignty. Ho ho.
No.
Okay. For what? Where's the question?
Yeah. Oh, you got them?
Yeah.
We're just going to do that?
Yeah.
Okay, we won't have to go around the room?
Yeah.
Okay.
So thank you for all the questions. As you can see, there's a ton here. So I had Keith Harper help me sort them into categories. For the first one, the question goes to Teresa. Says, does the tribe work with Andy Cowell at the University of Colorado on the Arapaho language revitalization? And I don't know where she's at, but I can answer that for her. Yes, they do. They work with Mr. Cowell. In fact, he works with them to help create some of the new words, such as internet, just some words that you wouldn't ever hear in Arapaho. Another question, and I didn't really understand it, but it says, does this concern all Native children? I'm not sure what the question, this is, even off the res. Yes, this concerns, all the information that was given concerns every tribal member, our Arapaho tribal people. I think there's 469 enrolled members, so yes. Jola, are you still in here? Okay, some questions to you, Jola. Water billing used to be $15 for elders. It's 25 normal. Is that now the flat rate? Yes. Jola, can residents be shown where their water meters are located? Yes. Should we be concerned with reading our own meters? No. Okay. It's a flat rate. Some of the other ones I took out, they're not questions, they're just statements, so we only asked for questions, so they're right here. I'll make them aware of the council though, I'll give them to council. The first question, and this is for the council, will there be rides given to general council for tribal members?
So the council did talk about it, and so we will pull from tribal resources, and that includes the casino, because the casino is a tribal resource also, so that tribal members that don't have a ride can get a ride to the general council. So we will have public transportation for enrolled tribal members.
Okay, thank you, and I know that information will probably be disseminated through social media. There was one more other comment. It says, I thought this was a public information, is it not? And if not, why? Yes, it is a public information for enrolled members 18 and over, and it's also being fed live through Facebook. To council, what will happen to the two councils who are against their own people with the lawsuit? They took an oath.
On that question, question we're not trying not to answer. There's possible litigation in a lawsuit, so we can't answer that right now.
Thank you, Chairman. The next question, are we going to get the money back from the casino spending?
So right now we're in a trying to find out what the facts are. You know, we're just starting the process with the accountants to sort of dig into the electronic data, the paper data, to figure out what the facts are. To the extent, and let's just say there's a lot of smoke, and we think there's fire. We think there's quite a bit of fire. And if we find out that there's been malfeasance and misfeasance, or whatever the extent is, we will then work with the council to decide how to try to obtain those funds back.
Will criminal charges be sought or brought on Jim Conrad, Mark Howell, Al Addison, and will current Conrad supporters be let go from casino?
The CEO has to answer the casino questions. You know, I don't think there's any litmus tests. People are performing their jobs, and you know, I'll let them answer at the casino management. Look, if there is criminal conduct, then it is our responsibility to turn that over to the U.S. Attorney's Office. So if we find criminal conduct, I'm not saying we do it. I think that there has been severe financial mismanagement, and there have been payouts that were contrary to Arapaho law. That's clear, because council passed a resolution. That means that's law. And Mr. Conrad made payments contrary to that law. But the question is it criminal in nature? And to the extent that we find out that things are criminal, we will be forced to refer it to the U.S. Attorney's Office.
Why hasn't there been a forensic audit done at the casino?
So again, I'll take this one. The forensic audit question is a very good question. Right now, as has been mentioned, we are just scratching the surface of all this information, and so that's something that I would really hope is going to be our next step, is to again, in order to get to the bottom of some of these things, as which is the term that Keith used, you know, there's a lot of smoke, and we're gonna have to drill down to get to the very bottom of some of these charges and different things that have taken place to find out the legitimacy of what they were, and also to find out where some of these sources are and make sure that they're justifiable for whatever they spent them on. And so in order to do that, would probably take a forensic audit to really divulge into a lot of that information. I just want to make a note that a lot of the information that they're discussing right now is just 5-6 months worth. This is just for this year. We don't know about the previous years yet, anything like that. Again, as they're just starting to begin the process. And that's where I was mentioning how Brian and Ron, I'm so glad we have two of them, because for one person to try and tackle all this information by themselves is overwhelming. Plus handle day-to-day operations and continue the operations itself. So again, that is a very good question, and I'd like to see a raise of hands right now of how many would support a forensic audit to give more information to understand what has all taken place. You know, I think that's a pretty good size majority there. So you know what, we want to find out, and again, because we want to answer to you, the people, because again, throughout the years of the tenure of the previous CEO, the same question has always came back to him, was how is our money being spent? How are you utilizing the casino revenues? And what are you doing with those monies to justify why you're spending how you're spending? And so that's a big question on everybody's mind to try and learn and understand what it was or what has been what has transpired with a lot of the money that was made here. And so that's our next step as we dig a little further and kind of start giving Brian and Ron enough time to kind of get a better, a better snapshot of what they're dealing with, is to start implementing to move towards a forensic audit and actually bring a team in that can start really pulling a lot of that information for previous years and even for this year.
The only thing I would add to that, and I completely agree with Councilman Fast Horse's assessment, but I know that when there was a conversation before about whether or not to do a forensic audit, Mr. Conrad sent out a statement saying a forensic audit would cost $3 million in order to scare the tribe away from looking at the books. I don't know, we have an accountant here.
I wish I could charge that.
It's not going to cost anywhere close to that. And just so, you know, maybe if you're giving a forensic audit at JP Morgan, but no, it won't be anything close to that.
So while these questions are being answered, some of them are repeated again. So I tried to lump them into the same category. So I have 4 questions here, and they pertain to the same thing, so I'm just going to read them off. And then let the council answer. Why is it possible for 2 business council members to sue their business council members in a jurisdiction outside our tribal courts? How are these lawsuits being paid for by our tribal funds? What are the council members doing to hold Al Addison accountable for his actions? How much has Al Addison gotten? What was the money spent on Al Addison and what was it for?
I'll try to answer part of that. Again, for the beginning part was asking about can you repeat that first one?
Why is it possible for 2 business council members to sue their business council members in a jurisdiction outside our tribal courts? How are these lawsuits being paid for by our tribal funds?
So from what we take of it is that the law firm of, I believe it's Joel Vincent, there was an actual prepayment made. Our assumptions is that's part of how they're getting legal representation. We're not for certain, or if they're actually paying for it themselves. There's actually not an official, the attorneys haven't been officially notified of any, they haven't been served any court papers, so what's being expressed in a newspaper is, as far as we know, it hasn't existed yet. So neither the attorneys and their firm has not received an actual notice stating that they are being sued. And so it's pretty hard to go there when we don't actually know if that's officially true. But as far as the 2 council members and their actions, that's yet to be brought to the table as a full council. One of the biggest issues we're facing as a council is, again, we're doing our best. Like I said, the majority of the council has made these decisions, and we have tried our best to be as decent as possible through this whole process.
Respectful.
We have been respectable, again, as Lee has mentioned. Anyone that is older than him, he tries his best to be as respectable as he can. That goes for all of us. We've always tried to be very considerate of our 2 older tribal members, tribal councilmen. But again, as far as the actual understanding what they have all been involved in, that's another whole issue for us, is because we haven't had a clear time to actually all sit as a council for some time now, because at different times we're not all there, and we want all of us to be there to be able to discuss some of these matters that are very questionable, but again, we haven't had a chance to actually do so. And so until that time comes, we're actually being respectable to the two, because we don't know what their involvement is or any of that, as far as we can actually confirm from them themselves. So out of respect for our two older council members, we're waiting for that opportunity so that we can have a full-on discussion to understand what it is that they have been a part of. We have assumptions, you know, and we kind of feel that we have an idea, but again, we don't want to actually be disrespectful and do those type of things without full knowledge from themselves. So we're giving them the benefit of the doubt and waiting for a time when we can actually all sit down together and work on some of these things. And then I'll let some of the other two, if they have anything they want to add to that.
I have something to add. I believe that this lawsuit is a ruse, and I believe that they are trying to play the public court of opinion in saying that there's a lawsuit out there. There is really, in my opinion, there isn't any grounds for that lawsuit. So I think that it is a ruse, and that, just like the Winter Observer, when they brought that paper out, I believe that the casino was behind the Winter Observer and said it at one of our local meetings. So I think the same thing about the lawsuit. Thank you.
Then again, the hardest thing for us to understand as a council is who's to be trusted and who isn't. As I was expressing to you all earlier, that's been the challenge for us, is trying to, again, remain decent to this process. We've given as much benefit of the doubt as we possibly can. We haven't reacted to a lot of these things that are being said, because again, we know them not to be true. But again, we want to ensure to you, the membership, that again, we want to do the right thing in all aspects of our duties. And if that comes down to, again, trying to look at what we are holding each other accountable to, then we'll have to take a look at that, and we can find out some information that may be, that may actually be on the other side of that, you know, because again, it's hard when you have to make these decisions every day on behalf of the tribe and its people. You want to make sure that everyone is on the same page to be able to trust those processes. And you got to have trust with each other to be able to really do the right thing on behalf of on behalf of the tribe. And when you don't have that trust, that makes it very difficult to be able to move forward as a consensus of a council. And that's something that we talk about all the time, and try to build that rapport so that we're able to fully have an understanding. It's okay that we may have differences of opinion, but at the end of the day, we all have to move together. And sometimes that's kind of difficult lately, looking at some of the issues that are pertaining. And so once we have the time to actually get a meeting set with all of us, then we'll be able to have a clear understanding of what our next steps will be as a council.
Okay. There's a couple of questions that are kind of along the same lines again. Can you elaborate on the employee contracts that Jim signed? Then did all their managers receive one? Can you talk about their high salaries that were mentioned in the slideshow? And what was the average salary of the casino managers and the credit cards?
I think those, Brian, can you elaborate on those? I guess we're asking about which managers had contracts.
There were 3 managers that had employment contracts. Those contracts were signed on 6/24, and they were over the scope of the amount that was clarified in the tribal resolution earlier, like 3 weeks earlier. And so they were null and void. So the casino and the tribe don't have to accept that contract. And so the amounts are rather high in some cases. We are currently bringing in, or we're going to be doing a wage study survey because some of the wages at the casino don't match the industry. And so, just for clarification purposes, I've worked with wage surveys probably within the last 4 years. And in a lot of cases, the wages don't match the industry or the size of the casino and their job function. And so we're going to take a closer look at that to make sure that if adjustments are to be made, that they're closer to what casinos of this size actually pay. So.
On the total cost, right, Dodie, was a little question, was total cost of manager salaries? Okay.
What was the average salary of all casino managers?
Okay, so I've seen some ballpark rough figures of adding up salaries based upon managers, what the manager lists, and the managers alone without the CEOs, the CEOs are the past CEO, the managers alone, their salaries for a year is 1.9 million. And Councilwoman Harjo, she corrected me here again, 1.9 million is just the hourly rate times 80 times 26 pay periods, so that doesn't include the fringe benefits.
And just to be crystal clear, as the CEO was saying, the council passed a resolution, and that resolution said you cannot enter any contracts without approval of the council. And so when a business council, or tribal council passes a resolution, that is law. Just like a statute, a federal statute or a state statute, that is law. And so by entering into these contracts, Mr. Conrad was acting unlawfully. And that's why those contracts were what we call void ab initio, meaning they're void at the time they were made, because he did not have the proper authorization. It was inconsistent with governing law.
So just to bring perspective to what Chairman stated, as far as 1.9 with fringes, you're looking at over $2 million for just a handful of people. And to put that in perspective, the tribe's annual drawdown from the casino for probably the majority was around 2.5 million on behalf of the 10,000 plus members, when you had a handful that almost equaled that amount that the tribe received for the whole year. And so that's pretty bad, because again, we are sitting there doing our best to try and figure how we can help our families in crisis. There's a lot of times where many of us have had to be flown out because of the fact of the Sage West that really doesn't offer adequate services in our area. So a majority of our people are flown out to Casper, Salt Lake, Denver, or Billings, and the it's the tribe who tries to help the families in their time of need to be able to be at the bedside of that ill family member. And again, that really hinders us to be able to provide, those type of services when we don't have very much cash flow to begin with. And so just to put that in perspective, we could use that $2 million to really help support our families in their time of need. And just want to give you that perspective. Thanks.
So Councilman Fasthorse talked about the revenue being sent over to the tribe. So this question goes to them again. How much money is the casino going to turn over to the, I'm assuming it means tribe, to the tribe on a monthly basis? I think that's meant to say tribe, because it says casino going to the casino.
Well, in the future, it's going to depend on what we, from a management side, are allowed to do here at the casino. There'll be a lot of restructuring going on. And so, that's dependent on part of the process. Part of the process is the internal control process that we're putting in place in each level of the casino. And so, if we just look at the gross gaming revenue industry-wide, we could probably add another 3 million plus, and that would probably start in the beginning of next year, because it's going to take us about 4 months to transition the casino over. So, and that would be more than double than you're currently getting. So.
And to add to that, on the council side, when the casino was first started years ago, there was an allocation plan that was passed by the council of how that money was going to be spent, and it's according to federal, tribal, Indian gaming regulations of how that money can be spent. Now the council has talked, and we are going to be very transparent with all of you of how that money is spent here in the future. So you will know exactly what the casino CEO and the deputy CEO, what they transfer over to the tribe, and then we will again be transparent and provide a full report of how that money is spent on the tribe, the people, services, programs, etc.
Are the remaining managers undergoing evaluations?
Yes. And no, we don't internally here. The decisions that are made regarding managers are solely based on their performance, not on whether they like a certain person or another person. That has no impact on the decisions I make. Mine are just performance-based, and they should always be performance-based, because I know that there's probably a number of people that I don't even know who they are that really like the former CEO, and that's fine with me. I'm just looking at whether they're capable of performing for the level that we pay in for the industry and their skills. If they can't perform at that level, then that's where we determine whether to replace someone or to move on. It has nothing to do with who they like or don't like. Okay.
When you do find out the credit card purchases, if they were for their personal use, are they going to make them pay it back? Is it normal procedure for a casino to give out 17 credit cards to managers?
No, absolutely not. The normal process with credit cards is you usually have like 2 company credit cards, and they're checked in and out from the CEO's office, so we know prior to any purchase, so you can't circumvent the purchase requisition process. Otherwise, no. Those are generally the only, there's 2 or 3 cards that would be held, and they would be checked in and out from the CEO's office. No individuals should have a credit card. First time I've ever seen this, okay? But I've seen a lot of things I've never seen before, so, okay.
So I just want to point out the spending limit that was authorized on those credit cards. So those credit cards that I'm sure that Ron and Brian are looking into, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe each credit card, the person who had it was able to spend $2,400 a month. And without authorization from finance or from the CEO that was here in the past.
Yeah, the initial purchase requisitions that were, when I first got here, the manager could sign for any purchase from $0 up to $24.99. After $24.99, then it required the department manager and the CFO. And after $80,000, it required the CEO's signature. Normal process in a casino is if it's $5, I want to see a purchase requisition, because I can stop 90% of purchases that we shouldn't be making prior to it, and not be trying to clean up everything afterwards, which we're going through right now. And so all it is accountability. I assure you, it's industry-wide. Here, it seemed to have gotten off the tracks, but the stuff that we're putting in, the checks and balances, they're just industry standard. And so, it's my intention to account for everything that goes through this casino. No matter if it's $5 or 100,000. And so, it's just, like I said, it's normal process at other casinos, so, across the country, so.
I have one additional, if we can get a comment from Glenn. Glenn, can you give us your synopsis for the amount that you've seen on those 17 credit cards for the past year? That's the 6 months of this year and the previous 6 months.
Yeah, the credit card charges, I couldn't really tell what the credit limits were on each individual card, but looking at just the credit card purchases there, I mean, you had Walmart, lots of Walmart stuff, Target, different food venues across the area, but in 2019, just from January to June, just June, was $535,000 in expenditures. And from the bank statements that we only had a year's worth of bank statements starting in June going back to July of 2018. But from those bank statements, the credit card charges were almost again $500,000. So you're looking at nearly $1 million in credit card purchases in a year that totally evade the purchase order, the requisition system. Whether or not the charges were for personal use or for business use, we still haven't even looked at the invoices yet, the actual receipts. But if they don't have a receipt, then, there's not much you could tell. I would think that hopefully all the receipts are there and all the charges were for business use. But I don't know yet. And it's going to take a lot of work to go back and look at it and make sure that they were for business credit card. But no place this size should have 17 credit cards floating out there. I'd agree with Brian, just 3. And typically you'd have the purchase manager have a credit card, maybe the CFO and the CEO. And that's pretty much it.
Loans on Sundance given to non-members, why? I'm not sure about that. Like, what loans? I
Don't know.
Hello?
What?
I can answer that.
Okay.
So again, we have non-tribal members that work here at the casino establishment. We've always taken care of our tribal members for the loan program. And a few times we had questions come from non-tribal employees that work here at the casino asking if there was ever an opportunity for them to be able to borrow. And for us, and for myself, I thought that was a good idea, because again, that's money that's not coming from the tribal membership, but it's something that can be set up and honored just as any other tribal member. And at the end of the day, it starts to increase the actual money that's coming back to the tribe. And so that was an option that we discussed. But as far as giving the actual okay to that, I don't think we ever did give an okay for that, but it was a discussion that we had as far as being able to get more value added for the actual loan account. Because again, that's outside money. It's not money that's coming through your per cap or something. It's an actual non-native contributing to the overall loan program. So we thought it was a value-added idea to be able to increase what's coming into that account to help. If there's enough of them that actually did apply, then that would be a benefit to a lot of our tribal members, because that's outside money that normally don't come through. So there was a discussion, but I don't recall us ever making a decision on it.
I'll try to clarify a little bit. Now, our Little Win loan programs is only open to tribal members. What he's referring to is through payroll, they got an employee loan program, and tribal members could apply for a Sundance loan, but their employees here, and out of their paycheck, it gets deducted back. And I think some of the non-natives applied for the loan too. And I don't know if it should be called Sundance loan or an overall one, because they do give these loans out only on medical or funeral, but it's called an employee loan, and it's not ran through the Little Win loan program. That's totally separate. It's got its own little set of books, and it does its own little audit separate from the casino. So it ain't through the Little Win loans, but it's just a employee loan program that's within the casino.
What's the interest rate for the credit card?
All the credit cards were paid in full each month, so there wasn't any interest payments deducted on the interest cards or credit cards. But all of the payments were an automatic payment to the bank account, which I typically don't see for credit cards, you know. I mean, I'd like to be able to authorize my own payment, but these were automatically deducted from your accounts.
From a virtual standpoint, I personally think we overspent on building and structural aspects of this casino. Quote, how are we going to improve by spending more on things we already spent money on?
Okay, on like the construction costs here too, I wanted to know myself how much we spent for the buffalo room where the food is. And I found the grand total, which is being depreciated on the books, but we did spend $16 million to build that buffalo restaurant. And it loses money every month. It's only open 3 days a week. So we're gonna, as part of our overall plan, me and Brian and others are gonna be looking at what can we do to try to create revenue for the casino. Stuff like that, we don't have any much answers yet, but we got a lot we're going through, and meetings every day, everything else. And I was curious about this room here, this blue sky room, and the total amount of the cost to build this room was $1,381,000 to build the room we're sitting in right now. No, this ain't part of the 16.
So, I and Brian have had several side conversations, and you know, Brian's an expert in cost effectiveness, and so what Brian and I have talked about is he's already got ideas of how he can save costs here on some of the I just gotta say this, some of the extravagant spending that was going on here, lavish spending. Brian is assessing, evaluating, he's going to be meeting with Ron, and he's got some ideas that will help us bring those spending costs down so that we're cost effective. And again, like Brian, total goal here along with Ron is to generate revenue for the tribe.
And then one thing that I really liked about talking to Brian, because I asked him the same question, you know, how much did we pay for that Buffalo room? And how are you going to change that? Because it's closed, like as Ron said, it's closed 4 days out of the week. And even when it's open those 3 days, it's still losing money. So I asked him, what would be your thought to, what would you do with that? How are you going to change that? And one of Brian's responses was, well, you know, one thing that should have been looked at first was probably an entertainment room versus a food court. Something that can actually be a draw for customers to come to our area, whether it's for live band entertainment and different things like that. So he wants to look and evaluate that to see, you know, what the cost would be to convert that into a entertainment venue that would actually do a little better than what it's doing now. And again, one thing he liked about this room, he's like, you know, I can see this being converted into your new bingo hall. You know, somewhere that allows an opportunity for high stakes bingo and different things like that. So he's throwing around ideas and kind of expressing how some of these amenities that actually do a positive service for the bottom line, because a lot of the places that he's been at, there's a lot of different amenities that actually work. And his last endeavor with a casino in Wisconsin, the towns that were near that casino were even smaller than the ones that we had around us. And so they were kind of further out, and so he has an understanding of demographics to understand the economics. Very, very good on analyzing, you know, analytics. And so that's a pretty good thing about Brian so far, and hopefully when he does get some time to actually work on an actual plan, that we'll make sure that we set up some time for him to be able to express that to you all, so that you guys all get an understanding of what kind of ideas he's thinking about. As we get moving along, that's one thing that we were very encouraged by, is that Brian, he doesn't want to make any decisions without the tribal input. He wants to ensure that you guys, the membership, you know, the shareholders, have the input to what the direction's going to be, as far as, you know, how you guys want things to look. I told you to tell. Is there anything that pertains to our Arapaho way of life that needs to be incorporated, or, you know, just to make sure that he's on the respectable side of all of us. And that's what I really like about Brian, is that he's going to bring that to you guys before any decision is ever made, and also to us to actually get the approval to do anything. So that's a big step in the right direction, because as we all know, this room was built without any of our knowledge. Even as council, we weren't even brought to the table to say, to where the CEO was saying, well, I'm going to start breaking ground and move the conference room. We didn't find out about it until some of the employees came and said, hey, what you guys building back there? We didn't know. And that was the same thing. You know, there was really no communication happening to understand how the money was being utilized at this again, council can really confirm that on my end, because I really was frustrated with that. And I expressed that thoroughly to the CEO, that I didn't appreciate or approve a lot of these things that he was just kind of just taking on by himself and not even getting any response from you all or ourselves. These things were just being done, and that's pretty sad. So just want to give you a little bit on that. Thanks.
We still have a lot of questions, so I'm going to try to go through these quickly and just remind council that we're running short of time also. Why didn't the business council know about this? Why didn't our leaders protect us?
Okay, so that question, when I and Steve got on 3 years ago, it took us a while to understand all of this. And the tribal members came and told us, Steve already knew. Me, I was actually on the other side of the fence. I supported Jim Conrad, and I thought he was doing a wonderful job. And it took a while for me to learn and to grasp the bigger picture here. As Indian people, sometimes we're linear, but we don't see the whole picture. And so it took me a while to get there. But we started to question, started to dig, and we just weren't getting answers. Things weren't just computing right. So in our amount of time, we were able to think for ourselves, and we were kept being told time and time again, Jim Conrad's the best man for the job. Jim Conrad brought this, he did that, the history, you need to know the history. Well, again, learn the history, and that was always put in. But we were always like, how can we be better? How can we strive to make more money? How can we go and bring a consultant in? I was told one time, and Steve remembers, bring a consultant and assess our weaknesses and where we can make more money, and let's listen to that person. A third party looking in, let's see, let's make our business better. And I was told at the time, why? You're not going to find anybody better than me. And that was the exact words. But so it's been a learning process, and it's been a steep learning curve for the past few months. But again, we're working through this. We can only answer for the years that we served. We can't answer for anything else. So please help us, support us, because we've got a long ways to go. As you've heard these professionals sitting here on this side, this is not going to be resolved overnight. It's not going to be figured. We're not going to get a complete, perfect picture of all of this. It's going to take some time. We ask for patience, and we're going to work as fast as we can to ensure that we correct this problem.
And what we had here was a group of non-natives controlling our tribe. We had our complete trust in BCR. What they were doing was writing resolutions, a lot behind our back that we were unaware of. So we had a group of lawyers. We had Jim Conrad and we had Mark Cal. Now we're starting to find out that there's a lot more Niathos involved in the cover-up of our casino and taking the money out of our casino. We're talking about various other lawyers in this area in our county. We're starting to find out now, and now we know why when people wanted to, an individual was upset with getting railroaded at the casino. Now we're finding out why you couldn't hire a lawyer, because they were already in the pocket of the casino. The newspapers are in the pocket of the casino. There's a lot of other people that own businesses that are in the pocket of the casino. So we're just now starting to find these things out. That's why we all need to show up at the general council to show them that we're in charge of ourselves, that we're in charge of our future, that we know where we want to go. So that's one of the reasons why we didn't know of these things. And every time they'd say, hire this person, they can help us do this. And little did we know that that was their friends. So they were using our money to continue to pay their friends, supposedly to do services for us. So we were being run by Niathos. but now we're not. Oh.
How much wood would a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? I think we needed some levity there. Council wants to know, we still have a ton of questions. Do you want to keep going? They'll stay and answer all the questions. I see some of us falling asleep in here and getting tired. Do you want me to keep going? Yeah? Okay. Anybody have that answer? Will Jim Conrad's gaming license be revoked due to the findings?
That would be the Gaming Commission. That would be an issue that they would address in the future. And gaming, the regulatory portion, you have three parts. You have the council, and then you have the regulatory body and the operational body, which is the casino. And we all serve different functions. In the gaming agency, they would be the regulatory body that would handle that issue. So.
Is the casino leadership bonded? I don't know. Does that mean they work well together? Bonded for what? I'm not sure. I'm just asking the questions. What does this mean for local job employment? Will the current employees have a better chance of stable employment? In the past, long time, employees were let go. They were told they would be rehired within 3 to 6 months during this time. The casino, said there would be no hiring, and yet there was hiring done. The employees that were laid off couldn't even return to their former jobs, could not even receive unemployment. Please do not let this happen again to longtime employees. So the question was, what does this mean for local employment?
If we go through a restructuring process, again, there are certain jobs that really aren't casino jobs. I don't know if they're just created or what, where they came from, but they're not casino jobs. There's other jobs where we may take a step back in one area, but then we may introduce like bingo going forward, so there'd be additional jobs at that point. And so how that's going to play out in the end, that's going to remain to be seen. But, on the other side, if we become truly a profit oriented or revenue generator for the tribe, then on the other side, the tribe would be picking up some of the additional employment. If we're overemployed or overstaffed, I know that there's a number of positions over by the tribe that are open, that they could use bodies in, and so some people would probably then find employment over at the tribal side. If that's 100%, I can't really say at this point until we get into the restructure.
So is it your claim that NABC Councilman Al Addison was paid approximately $80,000 from Conrad? Should Conrad be paying any money to councilmen?
That money wasn't paid directly to Al Addison. Al Addison was requesting it on behalf of the Wyoming Public Policy Center.
How much was the cost of the NABC's evaluation for Jim Conrad? How much was the cost of the casino's own evaluation for Jim Conrad?
Spectrum was 40,000. Okay, I know the counsel was hiring a firm, which I think is the law firm, right? You guys were coming in to do the evaluation of Jim, and he didn't cooperate with these guys, and he hired a Spectrum Gaming Group to come in and do an evaluation of pretty much the overall casino. And that was, the cost for that Spectrum to come in was like $40,000 and something dollars. Now, there's only been one payment that has been sent out to them, and that was for the first payment, and it was $20,150. So I don't know when that second bill will be coming in for the remainder.
And ours was 25,000. And our evaluation of Jim Conrad was a flat rate of $25,000.
What is the next step of Baldwin, Crocker, and Rudd do not give the NAT files they requested and denied?
That's one of the principal reasons why we brought the litigation, is to make sure that the tribe can obtain its own documents. And it's highly unethical for Baldwin, Crocker, and Rudd not to give back those documents. So what we will be doing in the litigation is filing what you call injunctive relief. And this is an order from the court that orders somebody to do something, in this case, returning the documents. So that's one piece of this lawsuit. And we'll probably seek to have the court address that sooner rather than later, so that we can protect the tribe's rights.
So I don't think this one's really a question, but it just says disbar BCR.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there have been clear ethical violations, and at some point it would be appropriate to put all these together and report it to the bar.
Were there anyone else not mentioned specifically Northern Arapaho tribal members who were involved in his or the spending of Jim Conrad? For example, managers, supervisors, GM? Do you want to say you don't know that yet?
Yeah, I mean, there's a question about who else is involved in this, and without doing a forensic audit, there's nowhere, I mean, you can't really tell. So at this time, my answer would be, we don't know.
So there was a question asked if the rumor was the FBI came in at 5:30 in the morning and took computers from the casino. And so I cannot answer that. Jenny might help me here, but our regulator, Jenny Wildcat. So we received a letter from National Indian Gaming Commission. They are doing an investigation of their own on the Winterberg Casino and on Jim Conrad. So in that letter that was addressed to me, they asked for images of computers, cell phones, iPads, laptops, and so those were provided to National Indian Gaming. And they also asked for other documents, and that's I think that's as much as I can tell you, because it is an ongoing investigation by National Indian Gaming Commission on the Winterberg Casino and Hotel. And so this is being done by the regional offices, which is in South Dakota, and also in Washington, D.C., where the headquarters is for National Indian Gaming. So we are under investigation.
Did you turn
Oh, I turned it off, yeah. Oh, is that one not working?
Oh, getting tired. So there's a question, and I don't know what it is referring to. Will it be released publicly to the tribe? Will we be able to see Jim Conrad's contract? Will it be released publicly to the tribe? I don't know what it is. Will we be able to see Jim Conrad's contract?
If that's a decision by the council, if the council agrees to release it, it's expired, so maybe that would be something that we could provide at the general council on Saturday.
The one thing I will say about the CEO contract is that it's another example of how this group of people between Jim Conrad and Baldwin Crocker and Rudd and Mark Howe, how they were all working in collusion with one another. Because BCR was supposed to be representing the tribe, but that CEO contract is the most one-sided contract for employment that I've ever reviewed in my life. And it was written by BCR. I'll give you one example. The only way the tribe could fire Mr. Conrad and not pay him up to a year and a half of his pay, think about that, 18 months of his pay, is if he was convicted of a felony. That's unheard of. If he took bad acts and was insubordinate with the business council, those are always grounds for somebody being fired for cause. So the fact that he couldn't be fired except for a felony conviction is absurd. And so that CEO contract is an example of just how incredibly in cahoots these folks were with one another.
Was Jim Conrad's computer erased?
So Ron and Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, but Jim Conrad's computer was completely wiped when he left on June 30th. And so what Brian and Ron have done with the help of IT professionals is rebuild his computer so that they could get the necessary information, documentation they need to do their jobs. And so.
But one of the stranger things of that was that our own casino IT had no knowledge of a computer being wiped clean. So what is being assumed is that Jim brought somebody in that wasn't an employee to wipe that computer. So he brought in his own IT person to actually take care of that for him. And again, that's against regulation because you're talking about some very high-level, confidential financial information for our business. And anyone that is to come on the property that is an employee has to go through a proper process with the regulation to be able to gain access to be in the back of the house. Obviously, those protocols were unfollowed, and that person came in there and took care of that. And again, thankfully, we have good IT people.
When will money ever be used to fix up our community halls? We have poor kitchens, no stoves, refrigerators, showers, bleachers, hot water, faucets, etc.
So on the community halls, the CEO of the Winter Clinic, Mr. Richard Brennan, does want to use funding that he gets. He has separate funding that he can use to help those halls to renovate them, and to help us convert them to wellness centers, and so he has a plan. at the time, he asked the casino to come in and do 50-50 with him on the project, the funding to support it. At the time, he was told no by the current CEO. So again, Rick has those plans, and then down the road, once Brian and Ron are able to assess everything, and we will look to maybe set a date of when we can try to meet that match for the clinic to renovate our hall.
Did Jim Conrad / casino fund a Bible college in Lander, all the while our own college, Wind River Tribal College, went under the bus?
I don't have any knowledge right now of that. But who knows when we go back in time. Right now, we're just going back to the first of the year, and we'll have to start going back farther and farther on some of the financial information. And that'll tell us a little bit more. But as of now, I have no knowledge of that.
By saying the casino will become a, quote, profitable casino, unquote, and not a, quote, job-providing casino, unquote, what are you saying for future job seekers, especially tribal members?
Well, if we have redundant jobs here, or, on the tribal side right now, there's a number of positions over there that they can't fill. And the reason they can't fill them is because they're not receiving enough tribal casino transfers. And so once we increase those dollars, then they'll be able to provide on the other side some of the social program positions that are needed but not filled right now. And so it's just kind of a shift. The casino can produce revenue. Generally, the tribes aren't your major revenue producer. And so, as we continue to produce more revenue, then again, like I mentioned, the transfers go to the tribe, and then they make the determination on future job employment. So.
Have the credit cards been taken away from managers?
We're in the process of getting the company credit cards through another bank, and at that point, we can cut them off. But until that point, we still have operations that we have to continue ongoing. So, and at that point too, once they're cut off, that's when we'll start doing our audit of the credit card program.
Does the casino still have a loan out?
Yes. The loan with the CIT Bank, I think the balance of it right now is 3.2 million that's owed. It's got a revolver piece to it that we can borrow it again, and it would make the balance go up to 4 point something. So there was about 1.7 available, but it reduces by the principal payment every month. So 1 month has already gone. So instead of 1.7, it's really about 1.5 because it's 180,000 a month of principal. It's just paid down in advance, ahead of schedule. And that's why it's only at 3.2. So I know it gets confusing to hear all that stuff because it's hard to understand that it's kind of like almost like a credit card too. But I know like right now we didn't have to make a principal payment, but the balance of the overall available to draw down went down by 180,000 just because it's paid ahead of time. So right now on our balance sheet, the balance we owe is 3.2 million.
Who authorized Jim Conrad to spend the money on the Buffalo Room and the Blue Sky Room?
So this was a progression over time. Jim Conrad had authorization from the councils, and then slowly was able to make decisions on his own. The authority gradually went to him so that he was able to make what the councils felt as the best decision on behalf of the tribe. So Jim was able to authorize and approve those things himself.
But it's, and that's, Chairman Sudundar is correct, that he assumed these powers, and there's still an outstanding question of whether he did so in a legal way. So.
This is a three-part question. How are we going to get the disclosures on the Baldwin, Crocker, Rudd expenditures? Did we sign anything that excludes us from any of this information? How are we going to recover from all the mismanaged funds?
So, I mean, the lawsuit is the principal means by which you will obtain the information, and the accounting is how we will figure out exactly what they've done with your money. And so that's why the Business Council went forward with authorizing the lawsuit that we filed last week.
And the last question, does the Arapaho Ranch owe any money? Do you guys want to keep taking questions?
So the Arapaho, to answer that question, the Arapaho Ranch does not owe the River Casino any money at all.
Okay, last question. This is the last question. Is there any statute of limitations for financial crime?
Yes, there typically is a statute of limitation for financial crimes. There's some ways in which the statute of limitation does not run or it tolls. So we have to look. Part of this analysis is to, as quickly as possible, find out what the facts are, determine if there's any criminal conduct, and then work with prosecutors to the extent there is. So that's why we're trying to do this with all deliberate haste. But yes, we depending on the specific laws that may have been broken, that's when you'll have a specific statute of limitation that may be relevant.
Thank you, everyone. I want to turn it over to the chairman.
Yeah, just 1 second. As you all probably wonder, Councilwoman Clara Thunder is not here tonight. She laid her uncle to rest this afternoon, and she wanted to be here, but out of respect, as Arapaho people, we give ourselves that time to mourn, and so that's the reason why she's not here. She's at home with her family, and she sends her regard and wish she could be here, but she will be here at the next meeting.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you at General Council.